We are like the vulture. We come into the death of the world, allow the suffering of those struggling to ensue, and after the process of death is complete, we transmute the energy of that suffering. We have had our own suffering and have dove deep into the depths within ourselves so that we could be among the first of the collective to conquer pain that many have tried to avoid. Not all of us have made it. Some have taken their own lives as they got lost to the pain and suffering they thought was theirs alone to carry. Most wore that burden as a cloak and teetered on the line of fear, often choosing ways to further harm self by harming others in order to find more reason to force ourselves to succumb to death that we otherwise struggled to bring ourselves into, believing that we must be bad if so much burden was ours to carry. Through the years, those like us have been cursed and damned to hell. We have learned to navigate through a world where we couldn't see beyond our own pain. We failed to understand that we were, in fact, also carrying the pain of those condemning us to these depths, because they couldn't see it for what it was, and instead chose to bury it within the darkest places they strove never to face. We bore those chains, drowned in lonely despair, and often tried to hide the pain beneath addictions of all sorts: drugs, alcohol, food, unfulfilling relationships, sex, self-harm, and so on. They thought they were better than the darkness. They tried to cling to the light they perceived so they could stay above the darkness. They believed darkness is evil, believed us to be lesser than they, and cursed our resistance to conformity, while they hid amongst others just like themselves and conformed to structures they refused to acknowledge as fatally flawed, while pointing fingers stating that we were the problem. We got lost in lack of boundaries of what was ours and what was not, and tried to fix all the pain that was put upon us, thinking that if we were able to feel it, that somehow meant we must also be responsible for fixing it as well. This is not our burden. As we have transmuted the density surrounding us, we have freed ourselves and others to be able to see and hear more clearly the comforting and supporting nudges that are in fact our brothers and sisters communicating with us throughout time and space, assuring us that we are on the right path, moving in the right direction. All along we have been communicating with one another, but failing to understand it. We heard the collective whispers and the fearful thought forms clung to us, attempting to take us deeper into the darkness. The heavier the density we fell to, the scarier and more unclear the veiled messages appeared to us. Some called them demons. For some time they kept us in the depths successfully, but what the masses didn't realize was that the further into the depths we went, the more expansive and higher the heights we would be able to take on in time. Now is that time. We come with our art, our music, our stories, our created things, and offer them to the world that tried to banish us into the darkness. We found love for self that the world tried to condemn, and recognize that it is not only beautiful, but necessary and worthwhile. We can love far deeper than the feeble loves of the condemning world because we know what lurks in the darkness, the diamond that is us. Our love is not of conditions, as the world failing to see its own shortcomings and demanding others to be better somehow. Our love sees our own imperfections and recognizes them as opportunities for the vulnerability of imperfection to bring us closer in connection with other imperfect beings whose skills differ from our own, but are in no way better or worse, and are very much needed. Together we are a beautiful mosaic meant to learn and grow, finding a better way of existing in the world and with the world together. We thought we were alone. We were never alone. We are a collective of transmuters. We are among the first to take on such a daunting task in a faithless world, claiming to be faithful to shallow stories that deny the truth of who we are and what we came here to do. We grew up hearing the condemnation of evil while never being able to understand evil as it was offered to us, yet also hearing that all we were was somehow bad as well. We experienced the worst we were capable of and learned that the situations we ended up in were imposed upon us by a flawed world and those incapable of looking fully into the mirror of self. We were forced to stare long and hard into that mirror. In time, we came to realize that the mirror was staring back into us as well, challenging who we believed ourselves to be and nudging us along the path of discovery so it too could understand what we had learned.